today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the Ricoh GR3, this little pocket beast right here. I've done many videos on the channel already, but what I want to do today is share my favorite way to set up the Ricoh GR3 for street photography and how I utilize all of the different features to make it seem like you're shooting with a Leica rangefinder. Now, if you are a street photographer, you guys know the GR3 is one of the most popular cameras. It's also one of the best in my opinion. So if you have one of these cameras, you guys grab it really quick. I'm gonna walk you through my settings and show you guys what I feel like is the best street photography settings for the Ricoh GR3. Let's go. I think what makes the GR3 really special compared to some of the other, like for example, Fujifilm cameras, is the fact that Ricoh really built this camera to be a street photography camera. And the way you can tell is by all of the different focusing settings. The GR3 offers one of my favorite features, which is the full press snap. All right, zoom in a little bit. So when you turn the GR3 on, the first thing you're going to see on here, oops, I have it set to black and white. So the first thing we're gonna look at here is the full press snap. You wanna have that on and then go to your snap focus distance. Now, snap focus, like I said, that's when you full press your shutter button and it's going to go to the distance that you have it set to. So what we're gonna do is find a range of focus that you wanna have set. Now, I personally have it set to 1.5 meters, which is 5 feet. So that means when I full press my shutter button, the lens is automatically going to focus at 5 feet and make the photograph. Now, obviously, depending on what you like to do, you can set it to other different settings like 1 meter, 2 meters, 2.5, whatever you want and whatever your heart desires, go for it. But when I shoot my Leica, I always float between a range of around 1 meter to about 1.5 meters. So that's why I have it set to 1.5 on my GR3. So this is my recommendation. Set your lens and float it between 5.6 and f8. This is gonna give you a little bit more of a wide depth of field, just so that when you use that full press snap, and let's say they're about a couple inches off, or maybe they're a foot off, 5.6 and f8 is gonna give you a nice little range, just like you would have with a zone focusing system on a Leica to capture your subject in focus. So when using the full press snap, float between 5.6 and f8, and trust me, it's going to work like magic. All right, man, so when it comes to the other focus settings, I usually only have it set to select autofocus, but there's auto area autofocus, which is what it comes standard with. I like to have it set to select autofocus because you can use the touch screen to kind of pick where you want to have in focus. So like if I wanted to have this clay pot in focus, I can focus to it here. This allows me to set it right here, dead center in the middle. And this is perfect because it makes the GR3 feel really snappy to focus with. Now, when you use this feature in conjunction with the full press snap, you guys, it is so fun to shoot. It really is a very powerful camera, whether they are 200 feet in front of you or they're about 4 to 5 feet in front of you. You'll be able to capture them within a split second. Now, the next thing that we're gonna be talking about with the GR3 in particular is going to be the auto exposure settings, because there are two on the GR that make this camera extremely fun, mainly because of the different looks that it can provide. I photograph this camera like I'm shooting with film still. So I'll set a predetermined aperture range, like I said, f5.6 between f8. Then I will set my shutter speed to 1/250th of a second. I'm gonna show you in camera as well as some of the auto exposure metering mode that I like to use. And one of them is really special because it is unique to the GR3. So on the very top of the camera, you have your control wheel. This is gonna give you all your different shooting modes: manual, aperture priority, shutter priority program, and then 3 different custom modes. I only shoot the GR3 in manual mode because the GR3 has auto ISO. And with auto ISO, you can pretty much set your shutter speed and aperture combination, and the ISO will adjust automatically for you. So what I'll do here is I'll go to my exposure settings, and the first thing I'm gonna look for is the auto ISO settings. Now, as you guys can see, let me try to punch in a little bit here. My ISO setting is to auto, and then there's a couple of different other things. Thereafter that, I have the ISO auto upper limit set to 6400. So this means at the very high end, the GR3 is going to stop at 6400 ISO. On the very bottom here, on the lower limit, it's going to stop at 100 ISO. So that means between 100 and 6400 ISO, the camera will decide on its own to get a proper exposure. Now, here is something very cool about the Ricoh GR3. And this is why I say Ricoh built this camera for street photographers. There is a minimum shutter speed, so you can set this to whatever you want it. But I have this set to 1/250th of a second, just to ensure that there is no trouble freezing the action and getting sharp looking photographs. So back to my camera settings here. I don't know if you guys can see that. I have it set to 5.6 and 1/250th of a second. That is permanent. Nothing will change unless I move the dials. The only thing that's going to change is that ISO, which again is on auto, and that's going to fluctuate both up and down to get a proper exposure. So you can shoot this like you would shoot a film camera, and the ISO will do the rest for you. Now I gotta be honest, you guys, some of the other settings I could care less for. Those are the main ones. I mean, I do have like the IBIS set up here. I think I have the ND filter set in here as well, but those are things that you can kind of adjust and play with. But the last step in this process and the last setting that I want to talk about are the different film simulations that I have built in. So there's 3 that I use. One of them is my slide film preset. And after using the GR3 now for about 3 years, I think I have it set to a good point where it does look like film. Then you have one of my favorites, the high contrast black and white. Like I mentioned, I use that with the highlight weighted metering, and then you have a flat black and white look. And I'm gonna walk you through that really quick because it's actually super easy to set up in the GR3, and you can fine tune it to however you want it to look. All right, I'm running out of battery on the GR3. Let's try to do this as quick as possible. You're gonna go down to where it says image control. Image control should be under the image processing. Here is my positive film preset. So positive film is my base, and then I have the saturation set here to +1. That's gonna give me better color, a nice pop in color for that film look. I don't really adjust the hue, but the next thing that I do adjust is the high and low key adjustment. This is going to kind of give you almost like a boost in exposure. I typically have that set to -1. Contrast here, I have it set to +3 because I do like a nice contrasty slide film look. And because that is the look that I'm going for, I have the contrast of the highlight set to -1, and then the contrast of the shadow set to -2. But other than that, that is the first preset that I have for my positive film. So every color photo that you've seen from the GR3, this is my preset for. The next one that I really like to use is this one right here, and that is the high contrast black and white. Now, high contrast black and white, folks, is going to give you that really deep street photography look. And when you use this in conjunction with the highlight weighted metering, you can get some pretty insane results. Now, when it comes to micro settings, I don't adjust anything else other than the sharpness, because most of the time I'm photographing compositions. I like to make sure that I have really good sharpness across the frame. Otherwise, high contrast black and white is what I use for about maybe 50% of the black and white photos I make on the GR3. But probably my favorite black and white filter on here is just the standard monotone, but I'll have the contrast set to +1 and then the contrast in the shadow set to -1. I like to try to set this up to have a more flat look and give you that more, I guess you would say like that more classic HP5 black and white look. Whereas the other one, which is, sorry, this one right here, the high contrast black and white, the high contrast black and white is set to emulate Tri-X. But you know what, play around with it, figure out what settings work best for you. But this is what I have it set to. Those are the main 3 that I shoot. And honestly, you guys, such a fun camera to shoot, so many different possibilities, and you can get really good results out of it. Now, obviously, you guys, those are just my settings on the Ricoh GR3. You can really adjust it however you would like. But because I shoot so much film, that is the way I like to set up my digital cameras. I like to approach it like it's still a film camera. So that is why I'll often have those settings built in. And the Ricoh GR3, man, is such a powerful camera. It is so small and compact, and all of those features are street photography features. That's why I love the GR3, man. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know in the comment section down below if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns. But yeah, you guys, that is how I set up my Ricoh GR3 for street photography. I'll see you guys in the next one. As always, Minolta gang. Why did I wait for that?